Hey, do it yourself with Burgess back again on a cold night. We've got a bunch of stuff to change on this Honda. It's a 2007 V6 Honda Accord 3.0 VTEC. So the alternator went out because the valve cover is leaking onto the alternator, shorted out the alternator. So we have to change the valve cover gaskets, the alternator, and as long as we've got everything apart, I'm going to change the spark plugs while we've got these covers off. And it's got about 130,000 miles on it, so we're going to change the timing belt. When you change the timing belt, it's recommended to change the water pump because it's behind the timing belt. So we're going to change the water pump, the timing belt. We're going to change the tensioner and the pulleys that are back there. These are the valve cover gaskets. When you change those, we're going to change the grommets that go with the valve covers for the coils, where the coils go through. We've got these other grommets. I'll show you where those go. Spark plugs, Red Bull, parts cleaner. We're going to get into it here. So I'm going to do this in 3 videos. We'll do the valve cover gaskets in one. We'll do the alternator in one. And we will do the timing belt with the water pump in a separate video. I'll try to tie them all together the best that I can. Alright, let's get into it. This video is going to cover the valve cover gaskets. And while we have this apart, we are going to get back here and take all this stuff apart back here. So we're going to go ahead and do the spark plugs as long as we're already in there. Alright, first thing we're going to do is take this little cover off. Screwdriver, 2 little tabs right here, just loosen them up, pops right off. Oh, take out the dipstick, set that to the side. We will have to pop off these little tabs down here first. There's a spring tab right here. I just used a pair of needle nose, little needle nose right here on the inside. I went through this hole, squeezed them together, popped right out, got the cover off. Alright, we got that off. Let's come over here. I didn't mention this. Let's disconnect this battery just for safety. It's 10 millimeter. Pop these right off before we go any farther. It's just best to do that. You never know what you can do to yourself here when you're got the power connected. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect both because I may be changing this battery also. Now over here to the air cleaner and the throttle body right here, we're going to disconnect this hose. You could use any kind of pliers. Needle nose works fine. We'll get this disconnected. We're going to take this off. This will be a 10. I'm trying to do things with one hand here. This should come off as one piece. Now that we've got the 2 nuts off the top, I removed the 2 bolts from the bottom, one here, one under the other side. You can't see it from here. All 12 millimeter. I'll set those to the side, and this should come right off of here. Let's see, I don't think we have to disconnect anything else. We just need to pull this to the side. We'll be putting this right back on. Next, we've got these 12 bolts on the top. They're all 10 millimeter. We'll just get these off next and remove this plate. All 12 of them, and it'll come right off. Alright, got all those bolts and nuts set to the side. Pop this off. Just your intake cover. Take this gasket. We're not going to be replacing this gasket, so we're going to set this gasket to the side. We'll be reusing that. Now we're going to take all these bolts out from inside. You can leave these two. These 2 don't need to come out, but all the rest come out. I believe it's a 13. I was wrong. It was a 12. These are all 12 millimeter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep, 9 of them. It's loose now. We'll have to take off a couple more hoses. One right here. Use the pliers. Take that clamp off. I have to use a screwdriver to get that. I'll get this in. Saying there's one here, one here, one here. So 3 more hoses that we'll have to take off to set this to the side. Alright, so we took off this hose right here. I had to take this hose off. There's a clip right here. Let's see if you can see that. Just a simple push button right behind the back of the intake right there. And there's one clip right up here. Same thing, one button, pushed it, pulled right off. I'm going to take off this 10mm right here and this hose, and that'll be the last thing holding it up. We're going to remove this piece. If we don't remove that, we'll be removing everything else, so it's a lot easier to take this off right here, and that'll be the last part to lift that out. Alright, we've got the intake up and out of the way, set to the side. I did take out this one that was in the back to this bracket sitting on top. And I had to pull this one tube out from right here. That fully freed it up to move it out. It was the last step in it. We're going to take this gasket out. Your intake gasket. Carefully, try not to break it. I need 2 hands, hold on. Alright, we're going to set this to the side. Now, do not drop anything down into there. I've done it before, trust me. So now what I did, all my gaskets came with this piece of cardboard on the back. I'm going to cut this out and fit it over the top so nothing falls down in there. So all I did was lay my gasket on top of the cardboard, cut it out with some scissors, and we're just going to push it right through to cover up our holes. Again, need 2 hands. Perfect, now we'll have nothing fall down inside our cylinders. Alright, next we'll start with the back. I like to start with the harder stuff first. Alright, we're going to have 2 10mm bolts for the harness cover. One right there, and the other one is right behind this hose. I know you can't see it. Right there. We'll get those 2 10mm out. Alright, we've got those out. Now we've got to disconnect the harness going to each of the coil packs. There's a button on the side. You just have to push and pull straight up. Try to get you a good vantage point. The button's right here. See it good there. There's only one button. You just have to push to one side and pull them straight up. There's 3 of those. Then we got to get, there's 6mm hex head right here to take each one of the coil packs out. There's 3 of them. Here, here, and one right there. I'll go grab my hex heads. Oh, somebody borrowed my metric sockets, so we're going with a 6mm Allen. We'll just have to get in there and get those loose, but I'm not going to be able to do this with one hand. Alright, I broke them all loose with my Allen. I'm going to be able to get them all out by hand now. To get these out, set them to the side, and we're going to pull each of these coil packs out, set them to the side. Alright, now we've got this hose on the side of the valve cover. Once you got all your coils released, we'll loosen this up with our pliers, pull this hose off. Alright, we've got our hose off. So now we've got 5 10mm bolts going around the top of this valve cover. And there's 2 ones right there, and then one over a little bit. I don't know if you can see it on that camera angle, but there's 2 right in the back. We'll get those off, then we'll be able to pull this valve cover off. Alright, so before we go any farther, I want to show you these bolts all have this rubber grommet on here. We're going to change these rubber grommets out. You get the kit, you'll see that they'll come with replacements. Hitting the light here. So these pieces, there are actually, this set's got the metal already on it, so we don't have to pull them out of the metal. We'll just replace the whole washer with the rubber. You might get a set where you'll have to pull that rubber out yourself and replace the grommet. We won't have to do this with this set. So get the rest of those bolts out. I've got all the bolts out. Just in case you weren't paying attention, there's one bolt that's shorter than the rest. That one goes right in the top center, right in the middle and the front. So just in case you didn't catch that. Okay, we got all the bolts out. Now we'll have to wiggle this to get it out. So sometimes they're a little tough. Use a screwdriver to help you get under and pop this up a little bit. In case it's stuck, there it goes. You can remove this clamp here. That might help. 10mm. I'll take this off. It holds the power steering hose in place, but it looks like it'll be easier to get that out. Let me get that out of the way real quick. Yep, just a 10mm bolt. Right there. Now you can see the grommets. We're replacing all these grommets also. We'll go through that in a minute. Now the next thing is going to be getting a razor blade, and we're going to go along this ridge here and scrape this clean. We'll scrape it with the blade first and scrape it out. Let me get a blade and show you. Alright, we've got our razor blade. We're going to scrape all the gunk and grime off, and we're going to scrape it out. You don't want to scrape it where it falls inside. So anything that's gunky and grimy, scrape that like that all the way around. I don't want any of that junk getting inside the motor. Once we get that scraped around, then we'll get some parts cleaner and we'll wipe this whole ledge off all the way around as well. Once you've got it all scraped, get yourself a rag, some parts cleaner, just some brake clean, and give this whole edge a good rub down, clean it all up, get it nice and shiny best you can. We just want to make a nice clean seat for our new gasket to lay on. Now you could skip this next part if you want. I'm going to change the spark plugs since I have this all the way apart and I've got the coil packs off and everything, and I don't know if they've ever been changed on this vehicle. I'm at 130,000. So I've got a spark plug socket 5/8. You don't have to have a deep well like this. You can use a regular 5/8 with an extension. It's going to drop down in this tube. Let's see if I get it on picture. It's going to drop down there 5 inches or so, pretty deep, so it's a bad picture. You can see how deep this goes down. So if you have a deep well, you can change these if you plan on changing them. If not, you can skip this whole step. So I'm going to pop these out. there she is. Alright, and then we'll just pop the new one. These are iridiums. I just grabbed the auto lights. You can get AC Delco, whatever brand you want. It calls for iridiums. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these other 3 in and these other 2 out, and we'll start putting it back together. Alright, got the spark plugs in, everything's clean there. Now we're gonna focus on the valve cover. So we're gonna do the same thing that we did on the top of the motor itself. We're gonna take this seal out first. I can get it with one hand. There it is. It was a little bit of a booger to get started. We're gonna pull this out, clean this whole thing up, clean all that grit and grime off of there with the razor blade. Also, we have these grommets in here we'll have to pull out. Alright, so these right here are actually extremely hard to get out. I tried small pry bars, I was trying pliers. What I ended up getting to work the best was to get in this little seam right here with a small screwdriver. Just tap it in there and you're able to bend it out. It's got metal in it and the rubber's gotten really hard. See how easy that was to pop out after I did that? So I wanted to get that on video to show you because it was really difficult. Needle knows everything, so I saved this one for last just so I could show you. But after that, came out pretty good. We'll spray our rag down, wipe this out really good, and then I'll show you a trick to getting these back in. Alright, here's a little trick to get these grommets in. I grabbed a little cap of motor oil. Just gonna dip my finger in, rub the edges of these grommets all the way around, just to put a little lubricant on there. I'm gonna set this grommet in place. You get it started a little with my fingers, but they're pretty tough to get in. So I grabbed a socket. This is 1 1/4. This one fits pretty well, a perfect ring right around. I'm just going to use it to tap that grommet in. Just gently tap it in. Just want to be careful. You don't want to tear this grommet, or it's going to be no good. See, it's sealed right all the way around. Just go ahead and do that with all 3 of them, and then we'll move on to the next step. Alright, we got our grommets in. Now we're going to do the same thing. You don't really have to lubricate this one much. I just do it anyway. The more lube, the better it slides in. Okay. Then we'll just feed this in. Make sure yours has these tabs that it's sticking to the outside. Alright, now we're ready for installation. Now we've got to put on our new washers on these bolts. So you'll need to separate the metal from the washer because these are so hard right now we're not going to be able to get them over this. So we're going to have to use some kind of a cutter to cut these off. So we could separate it and be able to get it off of this bolt. Once we get it off, pull the metal off, then we can put our new one on. If you need to, still have the cap of oil if you need to lube this up to get it on. And push it over that little ridge there. And then repeat that process for all your bolts. Alright, we've got all our bolts done. Now we can go ahead and reassemble our valve cover. We're going to want to be careful getting this valve cover back in. You don't want to knock loose your seal here, or you're not going to get a proper seal, and then you'll be pulling it back out and trying to do it again. Slide this back into place. Once you like it, you know you've got it where you want it. We'll start off hand tightening these bolts. Remember, the short one goes in the center. Just lined up. You got the 3 in the front and 2 in the back. We'll get them hand tight, and then we'll go through and I'll show you the torque specs. Once you've got all your bolts tightened in, hand tight, then you grab your torque wrench and set it to 7 foot-pounds. There's a sequence here I'm going to go through with you, the order we have to do it. We have to do it in 2 steps. First we're going to do it in 7 foot-pounds, and then we have to go back around at 8.7. So 7 and then 8.7. So the sequence, we start at the one in the front, and then you'll do both the ones in the back, and then you come to the outside 2. So you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we'll go around, we'll torque them all at 7 pounds, and then we'll come back and torque them all at 8.7. Alright, now that we've got it torqued down to 8.7 foot-pounds, we're going to go and put all of our coils back in. We'll have 3 of them. As we go along, go ahead and plug them in. If you don't hear it click, make sure you give it a tug. Be sure that it's plugged in all the way. This one I might need both my hands to get to. Let's see. Push them down all the way. Then we'll get our hex bolts, get them all started. Don't drop any. You got them all hand started. These also go to 8.7 foot-pounds, each of these hex bolts. There's 3 of them. Now that we got our hex bolts torqued to 8.7, gonna grab our 2 10mm bolts that hold on this rail. Get them hand started, and they are also 8.7 foot-pounds. We're gonna reinstall our little hook here that holds the hose. Now we have to come over here, put our hose back on the valve cover, reinstall this clamp with your pliers. Now we've got that one done. Now we have to move up to the front to start off with our clips. Pop all these clips off. And now we'll get our 6mm. We'll pop all these bolts out of our coils. Got all of our bolts loose. We can pull out these coils, set them to the side. Now we're going to remove this 10mm bolt that holds this coolant tank on. Need both my hands again. Make sure you get that bolt. Bracket's going to come out. Set that to the side. Now we'll have to pull off the hose to the coolant tank. This whole thing slides out. Set that one off to the side. Now you're going to have 3 10mm bolts to take this off. One here, and there's going to be one right here. Get those off, 10mm. Now that we've got this loose, that'll give us enough room to pull our valve cover off. Now we'll just go ahead and go around and take out the 5 bolts that hold on the valve cover. Take those off, set them to the side. Alright, we've got those bolts out. We may have to do the same thing as last time. They use a screwdriver to help you get this loosened up. There it goes. Now we'll be able to finagle this valve cover out just like the last one. This one's a little easier. Remember I said I start with the hard one first? And we're going to repeat the same process that we did before, taking out this seal and these. See where my leak was coming from? This one's completely broke. So I don't know if you can see that in the video. It's completely broke right here. So we'll go ahead and change all these out. If you're changing your spark plugs along with this like I am, this would be your time now to go ahead and remove your spark plugs out and get your new ones in. Got all my spark plugs out, put the new ones back in. Got our brand new spark plugs, let's get them all started. Alright, we've got our spark plugs in. So now I'm going to grab my razor blade. I'm going to start scraping, remember, away from the inside of this motor. We don't want any of this gunk getting inside here. It's dirty enough as it is. So scrape all this stuff out away from your motor. And then grab your rag, spray your rag down, and we'll wipe it clean. Okay, we've got our mating surface all clean. Now we'll go get our valve cover, clean it up with our new gasket and bushings. All right, now we got to get our bushings out, or not our bushings, but our seals. Do this the same way we did last time. Worked out pretty well. Pop all these out. We'll get under this one. I'll have to get this one out too. Now you could definitely see that this was the one that was leaking. You can see how it's burned up and just oil all over it. So we'll get this all cleaned up. If you've got a parts tank cleaner, you want to put it in the tank and clean it up, or you just want to spray it, clean the worst of it. We're just going to clean it up a little bit so it's not so bad. Alright, now that we got this thing cleaned up a little better, we'll go ahead and reinstall our seal and our grommets. Alright, got all our seals in. Now we're going to move on to the bolts. Remember, we separate it from the steel. These are so hard now, you're going to have to cut them off. They're not going to slide back over that. Alright, we got all these old ones cut off. Now it's time to start putting these new ones on. Just get all them on and then we'll be ready to reinstall. Alright, everything's cleaned, ready to go. Get her back on. Remember, be careful you don't get this seal out of place. Okay. Now we'll hand tighten all of our bolts in. Remember, we have one short one that goes in the top up here. If you don't put that one in the right spot, then you're gonna have some that don't fit. So let's get them all hand tight. Okay, so we've got all of our bolts in hand tight. There's 5 of them. We have to follow that same pattern, and they're gonna be 7 foot-pounds. So we're going to have to start at the short one at the top. 7 foot-pounds, then these 2 down here, and then the outside ones. Once we get all those, we do the same order again at 8.7 foot-pounds. We'll come here, 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 here. So go ahead and get your torque wrench out, torque them down. Alright, we've got our bolts torqued down. Now we're going to go ahead and put our rail back on. Our 10mm bolts torqued down to 8.7 foot-pounds. Once you've got your 3 bolts in at 8.7 foot-pounds, I realize I'm missing one because I dropped it inside the fan, but I will get it out in the next video because I will be taking this fan off for my next video. So I will get that back on. Next we're going to go to the coils. We'll put those in that we set aside, and as we go along, plug these in. Make sure you hear that click. If you don't hear the click, check it and make sure it's tight. Go through, put each of them in. Now we'll go through and put each of our bolts in. Remember, these will be torqued down to 8.7 foot-pounds. You can snug them up by hand and then grab your torque wrench. Once you've got your 3 bolts in at 8.7 foot-pounds, I realize I'm missing one because I dropped it inside the fan, but I will get it out in the next video because I will be taking this fan off for my next video. So I will get that back on. Next we're going to go to the coils. We'll put those in that we set aside, and as we go along, plug these in. Make sure you hear that click. If you don't hear the click, check it and make sure it's tight. Go through, put each of them in. Now we'll go through and put each of our bolts in. Remember, these will be torqued down to 8.7 foot-pounds. You can snug them up by hand and then grab your torque wrench. Alright, now that we've got all of this back together, everything's torqued down, we're going to go remove our cardboard. And then we're going to take our razor blade, scrape any gunk off of this intake here, scrape everything off and wipe it down with some parts cleaner. Once you've got your area cleaned up, grab your gasket and put that on there. Leave that there, and we're going to come grab our intake, clean all of our mating surfaces here on both sides. We'll flip it over, do the other side, and we're going to do our cover that goes on the top. We'll clean all that area up. Once we've got it in place, we're going to need to reinstall the bolts and the nuts. We'll just hand tighten them, snug them up a little bit, and there's a sequence to go to 16 foot-pounds. Alright, I'm going to show you the sequence to tighten these down 16 foot-pounds. This one's number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is right here. 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. In that order. Once you've got them all torqued, we're going to put our gasket on. And our cover. And then all of our nuts and bolts, we'll put them in by hand. Once you've got all these, snug them up, and you'll tighten them down to 8.7 foot-pounds. 8.7. Okay, when you torque these down, there is a sequence. They start with the center one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And yes, there's one missing. I have to get a replacement. So next we'll move on to the throttle body. Alright. See if we can get this videoed. This throttle body slides on like that. Get our bolts. Start them all by hand. And these are 12 millimeter. Once you get them tightened up, we're just going to snug them in a cross pattern. Once you get them snugged up, they're going to be torqued to 16 foot-pounds. Put our wire plug right here back in. Grab your torque wrench and go to 16 foot-pounds. Alright, now we need to start reassembling. I left these bolts in here so I didn't lose them. These were 10 millimeter. The throttle body were 12 millimeter, by the way. Mount this right back on here. We've got those bolts tight. Now we need to put our purge valve hose back on. Grab your pliers. It's easier to do with two hands. We've got hose back here. Come back on top. Reinstall this hose and bracket. 10mm. Alright, now we got to put our hose to the plenum intake. Then we're going to come back here, put our boot back on. Once you've got the boot in, make sure you slide in your hose here. You can put your wire back in the rubber clip. 10mm, tighten this up, and you'll see there's a little tab that should line up with that mark, and there'll be a little tab here. You push that in until it lines up. Once you've got all your plugs plugged back in, everything tightened up, got your hose clamp tight, we're going to go back and put in our coolant tank. There's a hole in the bottom where this sits into. Plug this back in, then grab your 10mm bolt and bracket and replace it back inside where it goes. After that, we're all set. Replace the dipstick. We're all set. Don't leave that there. Just wanted to say thank you again for watching. I need you guys to subscribe, hit like on these videos so I can keep putting them out. If I don't get subscribers, there's no point in making these videos. So if you guys really help me out and hit that subscribe button, I would appreciate it. I'll keep these videos coming. I'm going to do the alternator and the timing belt next on this vehicle. So if you need either of those, I recommend doing the timing belt at 100,000 miles. That's what they say to do. If that timing belt breaks, you're going to be replacing valves and all kinds of things in this motor. So make sure you get that timing belt done as soon as possible once you hit 100,000. This one's about 30,000 miles over, so we need to get that done. Thanks for tuning in.